Did you used to cry at songs or laugh until your stomach hurt or actually want things? Or maybe you've never understood why other people can do that and you can't. Regardless, now you sit on the couch, the show's running, the food's in front of you, and the person you love is sitting beside you and you feel almost nothing. Well, that's not depression in the way your doctor will hand it to you in a 5-minute appointment and a prescription. That's your survival persona finally collapsing under the weight of how long it has had to be performing. So the word for this is called anhedonia, but the truer name for it is emotional shutdown. And your system isn't broken. You see, it pulled the master breaker on purpose, because feeling anything right now would force you to recognize that your whole adult life has been built on not feeling. Now, a client of mine, a man in his 50s, sat across from me. He was a very accomplished man, and he said, Kenny, I don't even know why I'm really here. I'm not sad. I'm not angry. I just feel like the lights are dim. So I just asked him, when was the last time you let yourself want something? Just for you, with no plan to earn it? Kind of startled him. He just kind of took a deep breath and went quiet, and he said, I don't think I ever have. Well, that's what we're going to do today, regardless of how high functioning you look on the outside. Because here's what nobody is explaining to you about anhedonia. Your emotional system didn't malfunction. It's doing exactly what it was trained to do, which was to keep you safe as a child. Your nervous system learned that certain emotions were just too dangerous, too inconvenient, or too unwelcome in the household that you were raised in. So your brilliant little body did emotional surgery on itself. It basically amputated the emotional categories of feelings like anger and sadness and longing and joy and need. And sometimes, for some people, it's all of them. Did that so you could stay attached to the people who depended on you. So that by the time you became an adult, those amputations were not noticeable because the survival persona had moved in over top of them with this polished, capable, often very successful version of you that smiled and performed and achieved and never asked for what was missing. Now that worked for all those years, but now it doesn't. Now the system that's been suppressing all of that for that long has finally run out of the energy to suppress it. And instead of giving you back your feelings, it pulled the breaker on the whole panel. Well, that's what anhedonia actually is. It's emotional exhaustion. It's the protective collapse of an emotional system that's been carrying a survival persona on its back since childhood. Now, the most painful part is that the collapse usually arrives at the moment your life looks the most successful on paper, because the survival persona finally got everything it was trying to earn. And the body underneath just quietly said, we did all of this for love, but the love still hasn't arrived. So I'm just going to turn off the lights. Now that's what I called the worst day cycle, which I wrote about in my first book, Your Journey to Success. And it consists of 4 stages: trauma, fear, shame, and denial. Now for you, the original trauma was learning that your real emotional life was just unsafe. And that triggered the fear that if you start feeling again, you'll not just feel a little, you'll feel decades. The entire landscape of grief and rage and longing and all the needs that were unmet that you've stacked in your body since you were small. Well, then comes shame. That's that whisper that says wanting more or feeling more or needing more makes you less than, makes you weak, makes you dramatic. So to cover those overwhelming feelings, denial puts a quiet, almost reasonable mask on top of the whole thing. And you tell yourself things like, I'm just tired. I just need a vacation. This is just what middle age is. And that's why generic interventions can't reach this. Antidepressants, all they do is numb you out more. but they can't tell you why the lights went out. So forcing yourself to do more things you used to enjoy won't work, because the survival persona is the one that's trying harder. And that's exactly who needs to step down. And gratitude journals and cold plunges, they won't work either, because they ask the system to perform feeling rather than letting it feel safe enough to come back online slowly. So you don't heal anhedonia by pushing harder. You heal it by stopping the performance and finally letting the body trust that no one is going to punish you for feeling again. So here's what the way out actually looks like. And it's something I call the authentic self cycle to combat the worst day cycle. And I wrote about this in my second book, Your Journey to Being Yourself. And it also contains 4 stages, which are truth, responsibility, healing, and forgiveness. So the truth is, there's a hurt inner child who never got to feel safe, and a shame-based child who turned that into a high-functioning survival persona. Now, your responsibility is not to push yourself harder. It's to learn how to stop performing long enough for your nervous system to believe it's safe to come back. And you do that by taking responsibility for gaining the knowledge, skills, and tools to heal the original wounds that created all of that. And that's what moves you into step 3. And that's what happens when you commit to doing the actual work to heal and unload the suppressed feelings, to return slowly in small doses back into yourself without flooding yourself and overwhelming yourself. And that when you do those 3, then you arrive at forgiveness, which is your ability to have grieved the version of you that's been performing the survival persona for decades. And when you do that, you're able to forgive the caregivers who placed this into you. So here's a suggestion. The next time you notice that flatness, that dimness, or this distance you feel from your own life, I want you to try using my emotional authenticity method. Now, this is a 6-step process. It's obviously much more involved. But in this video, I'm going to give you 6 steps that'll really help you right away. And then you can move on into my YouTube playlists if you want to learn more, or my classes or other things. But you'll have a dramatic improvement just from this. So the first step, the first time you get triggered, gently titrate between doses. I don't want you to force. And what do I mean by that? Well, I want you to take 30 to 60 seconds to focus on what you can hear in the room. Just let your nervous system know that the moment is safe. And then I want you to bring up the flatness, the emptiness, the dimness again. And you'll see it's already smaller. It's not as severe. That's because just by focusing on what you can hear, I've moved you into metacognition, which is the space between thinking and feeling. You've been hiding in your thinking, avoiding your feeling. Now you're in the space between. You've finally gotten a bit of an emotional break. And that's why the next time you try and bring up the dimness and emptiness, it won't be as severe. And so go back to listening. Titrate back and forth, 30 to 60 seconds in each one. And you'll see that dimness and flatness is going to start getting smaller, and you're actually going to start feeling your body again. But you're doing it slowly and safely. It's not overwhelming you. Now that you've done this 3 to 5 times, ask yourself, what am I actually feeling underneath this nothingness? Now, you may only get like a little whisper, maybe words like tired or hidden or far away or I'm done, this is enough. Whatever it is, once you grab a hold of that feeling located in your body, even if all it is just a small, low hum, notice, register it in your body, slowly, somatically reconnect yourself. Then move into the next step and ask yourself, what's my earliest memory of having a feeling exactly like this feeling of distance? Now, when you do that, the reason for it is because this is the step where you finally see how your survival persona, your original emotional blueprint, and your worst day cycle were built. You'll see the day you figured out that in your childhood, it was not safe to be you, and you developed this survival persona to cover over everything. Then you ask yourself the next question, which is, now that I can see this emotional blueprint, worst day cycle, survivor persona that I had to develop to survive my childhood, if that were wiped off the face of the earth, if I could never think and feel those feelings again, who would I be if I never had to perform again? What would be left over? And that's where you finally see it. That's where you finally see and feel your authentic self, who you were before the pain was placed into you, and the survival persona of the performer and the blank, numb, detached, whatever it is you do, had to show up to run the show. Now that you've actually felt yourself for the very first time without your pain, you move into step 6, what I call feelization. This is where you sit in that feeling. The smallest bit of that authentic self feeling that you've just experienced for the first time, even if it's just a flicker, you sit in it for as long as possible. That sense of feeling lighter, freer, pleasure, curious, warm, and you stay with it deliberately, repeatedly, because we have to remember your emotional blueprint is an emotional nervous system on automatic pilot, running this tape over and over. It becomes an emotional chemical addiction inside your brain and body that you just run without even noticing it. Well, we have to create a new emotional chemical addiction to replace it. And that's why I want you to sit in feelization. And then you can start looking at that moment on the couch with your partner. If all the numbness was gone, who would I be in that moment? What would I think, feel, say, and do? From here, without the pain, I can reach for their hand. I can smile. I can say, come here. Come closer. I can feel their presence. And you do this, you look at all the situations in your life where the Anhedonia has been running at that survival persona, and you now look at it from the authentic self, and you burn in that feelization of you feeling safe, protected, that this is something you can do now. And that's how you build the new emotional chemical addiction to being alive again. Instead of the sense of the deception that we tell ourselves that staying blank and feeling nothing is safe. None of that's true. This is actually safety. And that's how the lights come back on in your emotional life and in your relationships and everything you do, basically one room at a time. Now, before I go, I just want to say again, you are not to blame and you're not broken. You did the best you could with the information you had at the time. But now that you've watched this video, you know about the worst day cycle, the authentic self cycle, the emotional authenticity method. You can choose to develop the knowledge, skills, and tools to equip yourself with the tools to do more. And you can dig into my YouTube playlists on all of those things so you can further your development in that. So just remember, you were just emotionally programmed, but emotional programs can be rewritten. So I hope this helped you, and I'll see you in the next video.